Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and we're joined by Tim Picciott, the Liberty Advisor, and today we're going to get into France because obviously, as you could tell, there's a big stimulus plan going on in France. As this Market Watch article says, France splashes out 100 billion euros, propping up economy and jobs, totaling a massive 4% of its GDP. Well, that's a nice little band-aid, isn't it? If you go on to the next article here, it says, analysis, will Macron's 100 billion euro rescue plan be enough to save France? Well, that's not quite the question, is it? Maybe if France didn't lock down its entire country and destroy its own economy and do all this chaotic stuff to the people in France, raising taxes, bankrupting everyone, maybe they wouldn't be asking the question, will Macron's 100 billion euro rescue plan be enough to save France? We're going to go into that and more today, but first make sure to hit that like button and check those links below. Make sure to share on social media to get around the shadow banning. Join our newsletter at www.imbanned.com. If you want to become a client of Tim Picciott, you can go to thelibertyadvisor.com. And of course, we are completely viewer funded, so check out GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar for ways to keep independent media alive as we've been completely demonetized on YouTube. We're also on all the other alternatives like Flote, LBRY, and BitChute. And another thing that I wouldn't mind bringing up to all of you guys is the PFT privacy protector that myself and Dan Dix are putting out there for people to purchase. You can find the link below the video for ways to save your privacy going forward into these very uncertain times. It's great to have a way to stop the Chinese government and the US government from seeing everything you're doing and tracking you everywhere you go. Even if you have airplane mode on, you're being tracked everywhere. Even if your phone's off, you're being tracked everywhere. So the PFT privacy protector helps make sure that you maintain something very important, especially nowadays, which is your privacy. Anyway, let's get into this news. As this article out of Zero Hedge says, France again being forced to stimulate is bad news. And as the article goes into, on Thursday, the French government rolled out a new stimulus plan. The fact France is again forced to stimulate its economy should be viewed as bad news. The move reflects the reality that all is not well and things are getting worse. France is facing one of Europe's worst recessions and its deepest since World War II. France is looking at posting an 11% drop in GDP 2020. This follows a 13.8% second quarter contraction that coincided with the COVID-19 lockdown. This is seen as an attempt to bolster French President Emmanuel Macron's re-election prospects. Macron is not loved by many of the French people, and the Yellow Vest protesters that have marched against his policies are proof of this. If France moves back to the right support for a stronger Eurozone government body, will take a big hit. Continuing on, it says the stimulus scheme is designed to lift the country out of the recent slump aggravated by COVID-19. Will cost 100 billion euros or about $120 billion. As with most government stimulus plans, it is aimed at reducing unemployment, which French officials concede is slated to top 10% this year. The amount of this particular package is equal to roughly 4.5% of the GDP and brings this year's total stimulus to around 10% of France's GDP. The French government is betting that by supporting jobs, they will give consumers the confidence to start spending the 100 billion euros they stashed away during the lockdown. As it continues here, it says Stash Learn shows France as being the second largest economy in Europe and the sixth largest in the world. As the world's most visited nation, France's tourism industry is a major component of the country's economy. This means that France's economy being in the muck is a big deal. As for Macron's stimulus plan, and it shows here, the French plan includes tax cuts and incentives for businesses, 30 billion euros, heavy investment in the green transition in areas such as transport, better insulating public buildings and homes, even the hydrogen industry, which is seen as a way to store and transport energy created by wind turbines and solar panels, 35 billion euros, and social cohesion measures, 35 billion euros, such as part-time work programs, training for young workers, and healthcare. Just as problematic as the fact that stimulus is badly needed is how it will be funded. Almost half the money is slated to flow from a new European Union joint recovery fund, which is seen as paving the way for significant fiscal transfers in the future. This new plan is moving the once taboo subject of debt mutualization to a new level. All right, let's talk about this because obviously, France wasn't doing good to begin with before all this insanity happened. Then the French government, like the rest of the world government, decided, let's shut down everyone's business. Let's stop tourism, one of their biggest factors in their economy, and let's just start throwing money at everything. And oh, now there's a crisis and everyone's out of work. We'll solve that. We'll come to the rescue. Let's throw 100 billion euros at this problem and hope it goes away, which again brings up that title, Tim, that I mentioned earlier. Will Macron's 100 billion euro rescue plan be enough to save France? Well, how about not constantly doing the Hegelian dialectic situation where you're going like problem, reaction, solution, repeat in a circle and hoping maybe this will save us. Oh, that created a problem. Maybe this will save. Like, what do you think of this insanity of the amount of money being printed, the amount of money being taxed, and the amount of money being thrown at everything? It's like government owns everyone. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, they're just in an unfortunate position where in America, when we have bad news, it ends up being, good news, whereas in France, apparently bad news is bad news. And eventually bad news will be bad news in America as well. Let's also not forget that Emmanuel Macron is a Rothschild agent, like literally was working for the Rothschilds. Right before this, I think it's episode 4 of my podcast. I get into all the details of this if you guys want to go back and check that out from like 4 years ago. But
he also married his former teacher, which is creepy in itself.
Yeah, and he was with, I don't know, like 15 or even younger than that. So yeah, very, very creepy. Anyways, we're not here to talk about that, but maybe France will get some boost because just as a quick aside, there was one of probably the biggest upsets in 20 years yesterday when Pierre Gasly won the Italian Grand Prix, and he's a Frenchman. So that was, maybe they'll have some partying because I don't think a Frenchman's won since '96, but it was a huge day of versus Goliath.
And to also point out that Macron cracked down on protests and basically made it illegal to protest in parts of Paris, which is, well, that's fascism. He talks a big talk about, being anti-fascist, but he's literally a fascist. Anyway, let's talk about the economy.
Yeah, well, another thing that I saw, and I'm just pulling it up right now, is the stock market. I mean, again, the stock market and economy are two very different things, but when you're, a Rothschild agent, that's something that, they tend to care about is the stock market. And going back, their stock market actually peaked out in 1990 or like 2000, and we're at the same level now in the stock market, the French stock market, the CAC 40 index that we were in 1999, which is crazy. And even over a 5-year period, it's let's see, over a 5-year period, it is just pulling this up right now. Yeah, we're even down actually we're over 5 years, we're up maybe like 1% or 2. But actually the biggest component of their index actually is Louis Vuitton, the parent company Louis Vuitton. And so one thing you're not doing when you've lost your job and you've been devastated and you have no idea what your financial future is going to hold is you're not going out and buying, another 1,200 euro Louis Vuitton purse is probably the first thing that gets chopped on the chopping block. So, but yeah, getting back to the economy, is $100 billion is it enough? No, it's not enough. It's never enough because what you're doing is by throwing money at one industry, you're then creating these different inefficiencies in the market, and then that money is then not going to be used where it should be, and then you're going to have to basically get bigger and bigger and bigger bailouts, as this unfolds. Because really what we are in is a huge, basically gigantic bubble everywhere that's being propped up by derivatives. We've seen SoftBank recently, their balance sheet was propped up by all these different derivatives, but it's all this house of cards where the system can never let anything go down because it's a very slippery slope where if it even goes down for a little bit, we saw, basically in our own stock market here, let's say ours, but, from basically the end of February to middle of March, we couldn't even take 2 months of that or a month of that going on, and then everything had to be thrown at this. But they're going to keep throwing things at this. But where do they get the money from? They get the money by having bonds. So they have to have these different euro bonds that go out there. But then those bonds itself are literally, the root word is bondage. So you're putting yourself in this, and then even look at the root word, something like mortgage. It comes from the French word like mort, and like a death contract. And so what we're doing is we're putting the entire basically the entire continent, the entire world is on this death contract where where we mortgage the future of and say we, but talk about the French over here.
Oui.
Oui. That's a very 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 punny over there, Josh. But but there's no way you can ever save anything, because you're gonna have to just keep doing more and more and more of this. And what's the end plan? The end game is he wants to be reelected again. I'm not really sure when he's up for reelection, or if he's up for reelection this time. But politicians want to do one thing, and they want to remain in power, and so they'll steal from your kids and grandkids and great grandkids in order to keep themselves in power. And then who are they in power to? I mean, as a Rothschild agent, if you are in debt, you're in debt to the bankers, and then all of a sudden you go bankrupt, then it's the bankers who lent you the money that then, as the highest bondholders, come in and own everything. So, this is basically, same game plan that's going on in America, where the Fed comes in and starts buying everything up, and it's just disgusting to see this. But who's surprised over this? I mean, if anyone over there went back and listened to, back when I had 5 people listening to my podcast, would have listened to that, they would see this guy's entire pedigree is that of an infiltrator, this guy that's been propped up his entire life to be in this position, just a complete puppet,
and then speaks for the left, which is hilarious.
And then speaks for the left, even though, there's nothing left about the Rothschilds. And no, that's not being anti-Semitic to say it's the Rothschild family. It's just, the actual history of how this stuff occurs. Now,
no, they're predatory bankers that spent decades, centuries ripping people off and working with government, and I care not who makes the laws. I mean, and if Macron wins another election, I just hope that he does another really cool speech in front of a giant lit up pyramid in front of the Louvre. But yeah, that was super creepy. It's like super Illuminati shit. But look, also on top of this, France is calling for foreign workers to come over there. They're giving they want to give out special visas for foreigners to go work in France to help rebuild their economy. But wait a second, almost everyone's out of work in France. So they want to bring people from the United States over to France to work in France now? I mean, listen, they're doing literally the opposite of everything they should do. At this point, don't you think that maybe this economy should just completely crater and they start from new? Isn't it better that way than just building onto an already existing problem?
Well, only if you get rid of central banks and get rid of debt-based monetary system, and that obviously, and a lot of our listeners know that. But if you were to, just make try to start over, but then you still have the same base foundation of having a economy or a monetary system that's backed by debt. So in order to get that money into the system, you have to owe money to the system. Whereas there's no reason to have debt-based monetary at all. The only reason is to control us, to enslave us, and eventually, 100 years later, get us into this checkmate position. And there's going to have to be some sort of reset, but unfortunately, it's probably going to be reset with this, with some sort of technocratic digital currency that, they, them, those control. And that's why, guys like Josh and I are out here so much trying to warn against this, because it's so obvious at this point. And I think one of their big vaccine manufacturers over there, Sanofi, they're probably going to tie it into, if you didn't get your Sanofi vaccine, then you're not going to get your they're going to have other slush funds and probably giving, like €1,000 a month. And actually in America with their trial, and maybe we'll talk about this in another video, but what they're trial ballooning here through the Brookings Institute is saying, okay, everyone that gets a vaccine will give you $1,000, but we'll only get, so a family of 4, you get $4,000, but we'll only give you $200 per person out of the gates, and until you convince the rest of 80% of your population, then we'll give out the rest of the money. And so with everybody in such economic disrepair in the entire world, really, then it's going to create all these little nanny Karens running around saying, our family depends on this extra $3,000, and you should do this right now because you don't care about blah blah blah, and then it's going to help foment everything that's going on.
Right, absolutely. And by the way, if you want to become a client of Tim Picciott, who of course is a certified financial planner, go to thelibertyadvisor.com and reach out to him as well. This is another example of why the yellow vest should be rising up again, but obviously this time not so much in favor of a different form of government, because that's just counterproductive, but in favor of individualism and freedom. And look, the virus is the government. The virus is the media. The virus is fear. The virus is the banks. And the problem here is that you're going to see a virus that'll kill far more people than the coronavirus ever could. You have the virus of the banks and the virus of of the government working to enforce its own control mechanisms on you, and they do not, in no way do they succeed unless you are further in chains. And unfortunately, far too many people revere those chains, so it's up to you guys to break free from those chains and stop revering them so much, because seriously, we are at the end game at this point, and if we haven't already figured that out at this point, then I don't know what else to tell you. We are really at the end game at this point, and it's not going to be fixed with band-aids of government. It's going to be fixed by you as an individual taking charge in your own life and being responsible, as that is the basis of freedom itself. But anyway, we're gonna cut this short because, as always, we go a little bit too long. But make sure to hit that like button, check the links below, share on social media to get around the shadow banning, as I said. And again, regarding like the cashless society and the tracking and this insanity of forced vaccines based on like social credit scores, like technocratic China, it's good to be able to protect yourself and your privacy. So make sure to check out the link below for the PFT Privacy Protector link below. I'm in an affiliate with it's myself, Dan Dix of Press for Truth, and a great man by the name of Howard, who's really put a lot of effort into making this come to market, and I really appreciate everything they're doing over there. They did a lot of research into the best products or the best materials they could use for this Faraday protector. Anyway, make sure to also check the link for the www.imbanned.com if you want to join our newsletter. It's really important that you do. It helps us reach you because we will be banned from YouTube soon. And make sure to also check the links below for GoFundMe, Patreon, and Subscribestar, as we are completely viewer funded, as I mentioned before, completely demonetized. And of course, go to flote.app, flote.app. I'm around 4,200 followers on there already. LBRY, we're over 1,000. We're coming up on about 1,100 subscribers on LBRY. It takes a lot to make up for YouTube, but if you guys go over there, we can easily transition from YouTube to these other alternatives, as well as BitChute and of course Minds. So make sure to check those links below. And I really appreciate everyone watching. You could check our Teespring store too. There's a million different things that you can do to help support independent media online. And one of those is just sharing the video around to your audience or to your friends or to your family. It's really important. Anyway, while they still let you. Anyway, I appreciate everyone watching, and until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. My friends, it is go time. We are completely demonetized on YouTube, and we depend on the viewer to stay alive and spread the message of freedom and truth. So check those links below. GoFundMe, Patreon, Subscribestar, anything you guys could do to help keep independent media alive helps enormously in helping spread this message to the masses. So make sure to check those links. Donate to our Bitcoin address on the screen or below. We really appreciate anything you could do to keep us alive. You could check those links below for Cointree as well, where you can find other cryptocurrencies that you can donate and keep WAM alive. Find us on flote.app, flote.app, as well as BitChute and LBRY and Minds. We're on all the other platforms. We are leaving YouTube soon, so make sure to find us at those sites, because it's the only way we can keep talking to you, the masses, the great people that actually care about the future of free humanity. Also, join our new newsletter at www.imbanned.com. Anything helps at this point, guys. We need to support free information online. This is the most difficult time in our history, and it takes a lot of hard work to keep our message alive in the face of great evils that have taken over the propaganda news on television as well as on YouTube, where YouTube decides what you can or cannot see. We need your help, my friends. So I really appreciate anything you guys can do. Check those links. There's many ways you can help. Until next time, though, thanks, everyone. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.